5 other accused get bail in the Delhi riots case. Supreme Court in its judgment says nation security and preservation of public order are important facets, says offences regarding security of the nation require a different bail regime. Prime Minister Modi pens a blog on Somnath Temple, calls it eternal proclamation of India's soul, says Nehru was unhappy with the very idea of Somnath being rebuilt. Year-long activities to take place at Somnath to mark the Somnath Swabhiman Parv. Prime Minister Modi to visit the temple on 11 January. Convicted rapist Gurmeet Ram Rahim granted 40-day parole, his 15th release since 2020. Victims' families cry foul over repeated leeway to stealth-style government. India voices deep concern over capture of Venezuelan president by American forces, triggers politics back home. Congress reminds New Delhi of violation of international law by the United States. A sarpanch from the Aam Aadmi Party shot dead during a wedding celebration in Amritsar. BJP Congress slam lawlessness under the Aam Aadmi Party. Differences within the Congress and DMK ahead of elections in Tamil Nadu. Congress MP Manikam Tagore says it's time for sharing of power, not just seats. DMK dismisses stance. In a big setback for Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid, the Supreme Court today denied bail to them in the Delhi riots conspiracy case. The court said that there is enough initial evidence to suggest their involvement under the anti-terror law, the UAPA. The judges noted that the material shows they played a key role in planning, in mobilization and overall direction of events. They are central to the entire conspiracy, is what the court said in its order. At the same time, the court granted bail to 5 other accused in this particular case, also going on to say that just because they've been granted bail does not mean that they are absolved of the crime. And the fact that they were warned that misuse of this bail would lead to its cancellation. The court has left the doors open for Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid to seek bail once again after 1 year or once the protected witnesses are examined by the agency.
तो ये कहना चाहेंगे इनको बेल देना बिल्कुल ठीक नहीं था और आगे ये बताया जा रहा है कि इनका डे टू डे ट्रायल चलेगा। डे टू डे ट्रायल में मैं अनुरोध करना चाहूँगा कि 6 महीने के अंदर ट्रायल करके इनको कम से कम फांसी की सज़ा दी जाए। पीड़ित वो लोग थे जो सनातनी थे और प्रतिवादी वो लोग थे जो कि मारने हमारे बच्चों को मारने वाले थे। मान के चलो अगर वो लोग मारे भी गए तो वो हमें बचाने के चक्कर में लोगों ने उनको मार दिया होगा तो उनका कोई दोष नहीं है। मैं ही नहीं, भारत देश के सभी सनातनी लोग या पीड़ित लोग इससे संतुष्ट नहीं हैं और अगर आगे चलकर इनको अगर सज़ा नहीं सुनाई जाती है, अगर सज़ा दी जाए तो कम से कम फांसी की सज़ा दी जाए और इससे कम दी जाती है तो हम आने वाले समय में सभी लोग भारत देश में अनशन करेंगे। केस सही हो या गलत हो, एविडेंस के आधार पर फर्जी एविडेंस भी तैयार किए जाते हैं और लोगों को बचाने का काम किया जाता है। वो काम इसमें षड्यंत्र रचा जा रहा है और ये ठीक नहीं है।
नहीं, कोई कमेंट नहीं है। नो कमेंट।
किस तरह से देखते हैं?
नो कमेंट, अनफॉर्चुनेट। नहीं, कुछ नहीं कहना है। जो जजमेंट आ गया वो आपके सामने है, उसमें क्या कहने की जरूरत है।
The Supreme Court cites prima facie proof against Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid. So here's what the Delhi police had claimed that they have in terms of proof, which seems to have found some resonance in the Supreme Court today. The call to Muslims to cut off the chicken's neck, that's something that the Delhi police had cited as their case against Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid, specifically against Sharjeel Imam. The call to paralyze government via mass blockades, that's something that he was jailed for. That is proof of conspiracy, and a larger one of that is what the Delhi police has been saying. The Delhi police also cited the action at protest sites and him claiming that will humiliate the government, which is why we must mobilize people, especially at a time when Donald Trump was visiting. He threatened to teach the court a lesson. It's one of his speeches from back in 2020 before the riots broke out in Aligarh, and that was seen as evidence of him mobilizing people and taking law into their own hands, which eventually resulted in the February 2020 riots in the national capital. Ananya, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details on this. Ananya, the court is very clear that there have to be 2 different yardsticks as far as granting bail is concerned, and when it is about national security, those yardsticks have to be different.
Well, absolutely, the yardsticks have to be different is what in fact the Supreme Court has gone on to say very categorically. I was just reading out that particular judgment, a 142-page judgment, very categorically defining every person's role. In fact, I was reading just reading Sharjeel Imam's role, where the court has noted that Sharjeel Imam was not a mere participant in this particular case, but was somebody who was the facilitator, who had actually precipitated this whole plan of mobilization. He was an active mobilizer, and in fact the CDR record also shows that he was in Jamia when that violence had, in the first phase, the violence had broken out in 2019 December, and that is exactly how the court has gone on into the role of each and every accused, and then in fact denied bail to Umar, Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, and has granted bail to 5 other accused persons, including Gulfisha Fatima. The court has very consciously stated that national security is something that needs to be paramount, and there's no compromise can be done with national security, though liberty is something that is very, very important. The right to life exists, right to free speech exists, but all of them come with reasonable restrictions. Law and order and national security cannot be hindered with, and hence the bail has been denied to Umar, Khalid and Sharjeel Imam.
Absolutely. The court is very clear that delay cannot be the grounds on which you can ask for bail. The fact that you have been in pre-detention, pre-trial detention does not necessarily mean that you have been punished for it. That's something that the court also observed. Ananya, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. We've been speaking to stakeholders here who have been part of this particular case. We spoke with the victims' families as well. All of those who suffered at the hands of those riots back in 2020. In fact, Rahul Shivshankar spoke with former Attorney General of India, Mukul Rohatgi, on the Supreme Court's ruling in the Delhi riots case and why this is significant. Listen in to that conversation.
Could you break down, in your view, the Supreme Court's interpretation of the law, specifically the UAPA clause?
Rahul, first of all, let the viewers know that an order granting bail or refusing bail is not a final verdict on the merits of the allegation. So, even if bail is refused today, a person can be acquitted tomorrow. Even if a bail is granted today, a person may be convicted tomorrow. There is only a superficial look or a prima facie look to assess the seriousness of the allegations. Mind you, they have yet to be tried in a court of law. Trial is yet to commence. It seems to me that the court has passed a balanced order. 4 or 5 people have been granted bail. 2 people who are supposedly the main protagonists have not been granted bail. The court has looked at the issue which is central, namely the nature of allegations and the material on one hand, and as to the impact of the delay in trial. Now let me tell you, that's the only issue I disagree with the judgment. Now, delay in trial is very, very important because this trial is yet to commence. 5 years have gone by. If somebody is acquitted after 10 years in jail, nobody, including God, can give him back those 10 years. So, the delay in trial where 800 witnesses are cited probably will take 10 more years. Now, the court has said that the trump card for bail cannot be a delay in trial. I would respectfully disagree to say that the question of delay in trial and prolonged incarceration is a very important feature in the right to life and liberty of every citizen. And that right flows from the Constitution. It does not flow from UAPA or the Criminal Procedure Code or any other law. It flows from the Constitution. They have been allowed to apply for bail 1 year later afresh if the trial doesn't complete. Therefore, according to me, I would put this order as a balanced order, even though I disagree on the question of delay, because they have been given a chance to apply again after 1 year, and so there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Okay. It's not as if that they are condemned till the end of the trial, which may take 10 years or 15 years. So all in all, I think it's a balanced verdict.
A balanced verdict, says the former Attorney General. But what is it that the Delhi Police's case was? What is it that the Delhi Police was pinning their hopes on opposing that bail, which has been denied by the Supreme Court today? Well, my colleague Ananya Bhatnagar spoke with Rajat Nair, who is the public prosecutor in this particular case, and this is what he had to tell us.
What has the investigation so far as far as this regime change operation was concerned?
Thank you, Anya, for having me here. See, our argument before the Honorable Supreme Court was, and even before the High Court was, that these riots were not created in a spur of moment. These were pre-planned. Somebody had sat, devised everything, how the dates, the day, where all these things would be planned and executed. So these riots were, from day one, we were aware that these riots are pre-planned, and that is what our charge sheet says. Point number two is that today we are aware, the Supreme Court has accepted our submission, that this was a pan-India movement. This was a riot which was tried to be perpetrated throughout the country. And we have given facts and figures saying that how in Uttar Pradesh, in West Bengal, in all other states, because of the speeches made during these riot days, how the riots spanned throughout the country. Today, we can say that yes, Supreme Court has accepted our contention, and it has held that our contentions are prima facie true. Evidence against the accused justifies their prolonged incarceration, and delay cannot be a ground solely for the purpose of bail.
Mr. Nair, there was an argument that was taken by these accused persons that the trial is being delayed. But there have been findings by, the High Court as far as Tasneem Ahmed's bail was concerned, because the High Court had very categorically stated that it is the accused persons themselves who have delayed the trial. Has that point also been countered by the Delhi police, and whether that has been taken into account by the Supreme Court in its judgment also?
As of now, we have not seen the text of the judgment. But this point was taken by us because the particular petitioner against whom this particular order was passed, he has not approached Supreme Court. This order was not even placed by the other accused. So it was an order which was placed by us, which clearly held that there was a systematic delay. The accused were acting in tandem and not allowing the trial to proceed. So we have to see the text of the judgment passed by the Honorable Supreme Court to see whether how this particular aspect has been dealt with. However, the Supreme Court has very clearly said that delay cannot be a trump card for an accused to seek bail. So this is the ratio which the Supreme Court has read, and we have to see the text of the judgment to strategize the trial will proceed.
Last and final question before I let you go is how do you see this order from the Supreme Court? Because the Supreme Court has singled out Umar, Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, but has granted bail to certain other accused persons. Do you think that that was something that these people should also be behind the bars, or this order is somewhere or the other incorrect in some ways?
No, in fact, the order of the Honorable Supreme Court is extremely fair. We welcome that order. Because Honorable Supreme Court, this order is a landmark judgment. This order will pave way for other trials in UAP case. The Honorable Supreme Court has categorized the accused in two categories. The Honorable Supreme Court has held that there are one particular category of accused who are the kingpins, who are the mastermind. And the other category of accused are the facilitators. They are the side fiddles, they are the side actors. So the Honorable Supreme Court has granted bail to the side actors, considering the delay which has happened, considering the time which has elapsed. But the main actors against whom there is substantial evidence that these people had actually hashed the conspiracy, they have been denied bail.
Well, let's shift focus now to what's happening in our neighborhood, and this is a CNN News 18 exclusive. The Islamists seem to be taking over in Bangladesh, and that seems to now be complete. A confidential ground assessment report on Bangladesh's upcoming elections has now been accessed by CNN News 18, and that suggests that the opposition BNP, which is the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, could be facing deeper challenges than publicly acknowledged. All of this seems to come at a time when the Jamaat-e-Islami is trying to make not only inroads into the political scene in Bangladesh, but try and take over a large voter base that the Awami League and the fact that they're not going to be contesting elections has left behind. Despite the BNP being seen as a frontrunner, it looks like, or at least that's what the ground intelligence indicates, that a significant section of Awami League's traditional voter base is neither emotionally nor politically inclined towards the BNP, and that's exactly what the Jamaat is trying to tap into. That vacuum is what Jamaat is attempting to exploit. So what exactly is the Jamaat doing in Bangladesh? There are several on-ground developments that are taking place in Bangladesh ahead of those elections. What the Jamaat has done is that they have put in certain people of their own to try and keep the momentum going. Out of the 64 districts, there are 42 where the deputy commissioners on the civil side are with the Jamaat. These are Jamaat-e-Islami appointees that are getting that work done. As far as returning officers in police districts are concerned, out of the 64, there are 48 that belong to the Jamaat-e-Islami. That number is really high, which is why it seems like not only is the Jamaat-e-Islami trying to gain ground in Bangladesh ahead of elections, but they could very well end up with a higher say. There's a systematic manipulation that seems to be going on by the Jamaat-e-Islami. It's a plan that they've put in motion. The fact that they use the university elections and to keep that momentum going, that's something that intelligence agencies are looking at. It's a micro-level control that the Jamaat are really focused on the polling staff, on security deployment. They're also banking that when it is election time, on the counting day, that there will be counting delays, and that really will shape the outcome, is what the Jamaat believes. Like I said, they're trying to tap into the vacuum that's been left behind by the Awami League. The voter base that the Awami League leaves behind because they cannot contest elections is what Jamaat-e-Islami wants to tap into, and it looks like they have a plan to do exactly that. Pallavi Ghosh, my colleague, now joins us. She's been reporting live from Dhaka, getting us the latest of what's happening there on ground. Pallavi, as far as the Jamaat's hold in this electoral scene of Bangladesh is concerned, it looks like it's only going to get stronger from here on.
Oh yes, see, they have worked out their strategy in a very, very calculated manner. First of all this information, I mean, it's coming in from Manoj Gupta, but what I picked up from the ground in the last 1 week that we have been here, first of all, that vacuum is there of the Awami League. Most of the Awami League leaders have either run away from the country, they are in London, or they've gone underground. But more important are those Awami League voters. Where are they? Because none of them, for fear factor, are coming out openly. And where do they go? Because they are a sizable chunk of it. So on one hand, you have the BNP alliance with a small number of parties. On the other side, you have Jamaat, which has also done a very strategic alliance with the NCP, which is the National Citizen Party. That NCP is a party of all those students, most of them who had taken part in the student uprising around a year back, which had led to the unseating of Sheikh Hasina. So the university voters, the student voters, who are the aspirational ones and who are looking for a new Bangladesh, they are the ones who have chosen the Jamaat. Though, of course, to be very fair, within the NCP also, there has been a bit of a rift because many of them are very uncomfortable with the idea of going along with the Jamaat. But for now, the NCP with the Jamaat means the Jamaat's calculation is, one, the Awami League voters will not go towards the BNP. And the second thing is the students, because of the NCP, will come towards them, which is why during the university elections, there was a capturing of the voting pattern by the Jamaat to a very great extent. Why is it that Awami League voter may not go to BNP and will opt for Jamaat? Was simply because of the age-old rivalry between Begum Khalida Zia and Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina, according to Khalida Zia's supporters, was the one who had put her to jail and who had also ill-treated her. Now, the Awami League also feels equally strongly about the BNP, so they would not want to go for the BNP, they'll vote for the Jamaat. I did ask the Jamaat leadership this. The perception about them, Poonam, of being extremely radical, pursuing an Islamic ideology, and that's where the problem is. You know, unlike many of the other Muslim countries, in Bangladesh over here, you will find a large number of women who are out and about. There is no stricture about that they have to wear a hijab over here. They are free to work, they are free to travel, there are coffee shops all around these areas, Poonam, which is where is a freedom of expression and speech. Many of these young people may not be very happy with the Jamaat's kind of an ideology, which is why the Jamaat has tied up strategically with the NCP to ensure that the young voters, men, women, or young boys and girls, all go towards them. That is how the scenario for the battle for Bangladesh lies, which goes to elections on 12th of February.
And whether they actually manage to keep that momentum going for them to have some results in their favor, we'll have to wait and watch for that. But for the moment, Pallavi, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. Sushant Sareen, Senior Fellow ORF, is also joining us here on the broadcast. Sushant Sareen, this kind of momentum that the Jamaat seems to be building there, I mean, we would have seen it coming, especially given what has been happening for the last 1.5 years, ever since Mohammad Yunus took over.
Yeah, also because remember that a kind of a vacuum has been created in Bangladesh. Now, it's a double vacuum in the sense that the BNP's basic support base had been denuded over the last 15 years because of the rivalry between the Awami League and the BNP. The BNP had lost a lot of support, a lot of ground. Its leadership was either in jail or had run away. There were a few people left. So, in a sense, the support base had been denuded. The Jamaat-e-Islami also was targeted, but the Jamaat, the kind of organization it is, it has managed to keep its basic support base intact and then built on from there. And it's much better organized. It's far more grassroots than some of the other organizations. So clearly, yes. And then you have a administration in Bangladesh right now, which is kind of soft on the Jamaat, is going along with the Jamaat. There are a lot of Jamaatis within the government circles who are backing these guys completely. They have a lot of street power. So yes, in a sense, the Jamaat is pretty well placed. Now, whether they will be able to translate that into votes is another matter. Just one thing I think it's important to underline. We saw this in Afghanistan. We've seen it in many other parts of the world. Something which Pallavi said, and that is that, that Bangladesh women are out in the streets. They don't wear the hijab mostly. They are workers. They work in factories. They work all over the place. There are cafes. All of the stuff which Pallavi said was true for Kabul and other parts of Afghanistan. What happened? The day the Islamists take over, the first people they attack are the women. We saw that in Iran. We've seen that in Afghanistan. We've seen that in many other parts of the world. So if anybody is pinning hopes that the Jamaat will turn out to be a very moderate, enlightened, progressive kind of an Islamic party, I think you really need to re-examine that analysis, simply because you cannot change the nature of the beast. And the Jamaat-e-Islami, given its ideology, given the wellspring from which it comes out, is not inclined to giving women a free role.
Sure.
At least not the kind of freedoms they are accustomed to enjoying. So there will definitely be a clampdown on women freedoms if the Jamaat was ever to come into power. And secondly, and more importantly, if the Jamaat was to come into power, apart from women, the one thing they will do is they will capture power in a way that there will be nobody else left in the political arena. It will be a monopolization of power. Again, that is the nature of the beast. So people who have any kind of hopes on the Jamaat, I think are entirely misplaced hopes.
Where does that leave? Where does that leave India then? I mean, we're already seeing efforts where both Pakistan and Bangladesh are trying to come together, sort of form this axis against India, with this sort of takeover that the Jamaat seems to be having. And if that actually does yield any results electorally as well, where does that leave India then? And should India be worried?
Of course, India needs to be worried, because it means that a large part of our eastern border is now going to get destabilized with an Islamist, jihadist kind of an organization like the Jamaat, if it grabs power, or even if it is the main opposition party. The kind of pressure that they will build up on the streets, the kind of pressure they will build up on, assuming that the BNP is able to form a government, on the BNP. And don't forget that the BNP also espouses Bangladeshi nationalism, which defines itself as not exactly being friendly to India. Whether that has now become more pragmatic, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But if the pressure from the street mounts up, even if it's not a popular pressure, but a pressure simply of the Jamaat and the Islamist cadres on the street forcing the hand of the government, assuming the BNP forms it, will go well for India. And we have known that in the past, last time the BNP was in power, it was flirting with the Pakistanis openly. It was giving the Pakistanis a free run in Bangladesh. So yes, there are going to be very, very serious concerns for India. And I think we need to prepare for a time where our eastern border is going to be a source of great instability and turmoil in our country. And for that, I think it is important that we sort out our own politics. It is important that we have some state governments on the borders with Bangladesh. We need to bring them on board. They need to understand that politics and all the fighting which happens in politics out here is one thing, but to allow an overly hostile kind of a party in Bangladesh to run riot in India is not something which even which serves anybody's interest in India,
Absolutely.
actually. So
Absolutely, and doesn't
it will
serve
be
the
very
interests of the subcontinent either. I mean, it's going to be a problem for the entire region, and we do hope that we do not find ourselves in that situation. We'll have to, of course, wait and watch when those elections happen, if those elections happen as they are slated to be, given what we've seen, especially in the last 1 month. But I have to leave it there. Sushant Sareen, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. With that, it's time for a quick break on this edition of Nation at 5, but news and updates continue here, so don't go anywhere.
In a city that never sleeps, every decision matters. From roads to rains, from safety to services, every rupee counts. One alliance versus fractured opposition. Who will Mumbai choose? Ballot Maximum City. Complete coverage on CNN News 18. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
The Delhi police has categorically called a regime change operation. A lot of violence broke out, remember, as early as December 2019 in Delhi at various places, and it continued to erupt at many of these protest sites through that period between December, January, and finally when Donald Trump, the American president, was visiting Delhi, full-scale riots broke out as far as this opposition, so-called opposition to CA is concerned. My colleague Anshul Singh is also joining us. Anshul, no relief then for Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, and both of their roles have been separated by the Supreme Court when it comes to this case.
Well, definitely that is very, very important and a very pertinent point, because this entire judgment will now set up precedent to many other such such cases, because remember, it is for the first time that in a UAPA case, the Supreme Court has gone ahead and very categorically defined that yes, a bail can be granted in UAPA. But yes, the role of each and every person who is said to be involved, that needs to be looked into. The prima facie evidences that have been put forward, that needs to be examined before granting them bail. Also, in the judgment that has been given out today, the Supreme Court has defined terrorism as well, and in fact added a few lines to that as well. If there is this conspiracy to somewhere or the other disrupt the emergency services, that also falls under terrorism, is what the Supreme Court has said. So this is going to be very, very significant and very, very pivotal in this entire investigation and the entire hearing, whenever that starts from the trial court as well. But yes, the manner in which the Supreme Court has dwelled a deep dive into the role of each and every accused, how were they involved, Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, how they were actually planning to go ahead and disrupt the security of our country. This is something that is very, very significant at this point in time, and definitely a massive thumbs up to the investigation of the Delhi police, which had clearly gone ahead and stated that this was in fact a regime change operation that was being undertaken by Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam. They had planned this entire protest. They had planned the timing of this protest. The first protest that happened in December, that did not bear the fruits that they wanted, and then eventually when Donald Trump came to India, they went ahead and created these artificial quote-unquote riots that happened, which were absolutely not, which were actually not natural, is what the Supreme Court is of the opinion. However, the Supreme Court has not gone into the merits of these allegations, but prima facie the Supreme Court is of the opinion that yes, these allegations actually make sure that these accused, Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid, should stay behind the bars.
Right. Anshul, I do appreciate you joining us. Also listening to this conversation that my colleague Ananya Bhatnagar had with ASG SV Raju on the Supreme Court's bail ruling in the Delhi riots case.
My first question to you is, what is the Supreme Court's order? What is the kind of reaction that is there from you, first of all?
Say the reaction is that justice has been done as far as these two persons are concerned, Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid. The social media tried to portray their case in a different manner. And without going into the evidence, without going into the material, people made comments, and which was totally unjustifiable. You cannot justify. Some lawmakers from US also said grant them bail. How can US lawmakers say grant them bail? Are they aware of our Indian conditions?
Thank you so much for staying with us here on Nation at 5. We have some breaking news that's now coming in. This is to do with BJP's mission Tamil Nadu ahead of elections in the state. Union Home Minister Amit Shah is on ground. And during that visit, Union Home Minister there is showing a strong message to BJP cadre and the leadership. After taking detailed feedback from leaders on ground, Amit Shah made it clear that all parties and leaders that are not aligned with the DMK Congress must be actively approached to join the NDA. The BJP, he said, must keep its options open. Does that include Vijay? Is a question many are asking. Given the kind of popularity that Vijay has been raking up, will that popularity actually translate into votes or not? We don't know. The fact that Vijay has also been attacking only the DMK and Chief Minister M.K. Stalin in every public meeting and rally, could that door be open for the BJP and the AIA-DMK alliance? Payal, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details on this. Payal, what more have you gathered from your sources?
Well, to believe what our sources have indicated, Poonam, there are many within the BJP who feel that they should strike an alliance with the TVK. But the TVK has specific demands in place, and Vijay wants to establish himself as the chief ministerial face. And if the alliance between the AIDMK and BJP is anything to go by, then the BJP has already promised that Mr. OPS can actually become the chief minister of the state as well. So that's something which remains to be seen. How this goes forward in terms of discussion in the coming days is a matter for everybody to see. But one thing is very, very clearly told to the state leaders and also to the central leaders who were part of the meeting, that they have to strike as many alliances as possible. They have to bring multiple forces together, those who are opposed to DMK and opposed to the Congress as well. And these are the parties that have to be targeted in particular as well. So remember, Piyush Goyal is an old horse. He's somebody who's handled the issues as far as Tamil Nadu in the past are really concerned. What happens to Ramado's family? Can they come on board? What happens to the other smaller alliance partners? What happens to the splinter faction of the AIDMK? Remember, OPS has constantly been pressing for the fact that he doesn't want TTD Dinakaran, doesn't want Sasikala, doesn't want Sengotian and the others. That is something which he has been stressing very, very clearly. But one thing is there for sure. Amit Shah said one thing in no uncertain words, that the whole idea will be to win the state. BJP is not here to increase its vote banks, or neither is it here to play a kingmaker's role. BJP is here to win the election. And of course, it's going to be a tri-cornered fight as far as the BJP is really concerned. They are of the belief that the Congress and the DMK will not strike a partnership this time around, and they might contest separately with different alliance partners. And the third cog in the wheel, of course, will be the BJP-led alliance, which is going to be, which currently has AIDMK with itself. So obviously, no alliance is being ruled out as of now. But the BJP firmly has its eyes set on Tamil Nadu, a state that they've been wanting to hold on to power for a very, very long time now.
Absolutely. So what happens next? Whether the BJP and the NDA there opens doors to other smaller parties, including the TVK, that's something that we'll have to wait and watch out for. For the moment, Payal, thank you so much for getting us the latest. But speaking about Tamil Nadu, even as the BJP is trying to consolidate, there seems to be tensions that are mounting in the opposite camp, which is the Congress-DMK alliance. They've been in seat-sharing negotiations ahead of the elections, but it looks like the Congress now wants a larger share, one that the DMK is not in favour of. Congress MP Manikam Tagore called for power sharing, not just seat sharing, to which DMK hit right back. They said that matters like this should be discussed internally and not on a public platform. In fact, the DMK even went on to dismiss this as a personal opinion of leaders like Manikam Tagore and not necessarily of the entire party, questioning why such comments were being made that are in poor shape, stressing that their alliance with the DMK remains strong. TKS Selangovan also said that the Congress leadership has set up a committee to handle these discussions and that Manikam Tagore is not a part of it, which is why perhaps he does not realize the nitty-gritties of this alliance. But the fact is that it's been a few weeks now since these negotiations are on between the Congress and the DMK, and it seems like neither side wants to budge.
He is not the president of the state unit, neither the president of the National Congress partner, INC, Indian National Congress. That is why Congress is not in good shape, only because of people like him. They should have discussed these matters with their party leaders, not in the open, not in the public. Our alliance is strong. But the people will see that these people are anti-Congress, not anti-DMK. They are anti-Congress. They don't want to build Congress. They want to spoil the growth of Congress.
Purnima, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details. Purnima, what's the status of these seat-sharing talks that are happening between the DMK and the Congress? Because it looks like, even as those negotiations go on, leaders on the sidelines on both sides are trying to pile on some pressure.
Absolutely. The seat-sharing talks between the DMK and the Congress continue. Congress, of course, wants more. They want at least 30-odd seats this time around as far as Tamil Nadu elections are concerned. Last time they managed only 20, but this time they want more. However, the seat-sharing talks are underway. The DMK and the Congress top leadership here in Tamil Nadu, they are of the view that DMK and Congress should continue with the seat-sharing talks and that they should decide all this internally. If there are differences, they should convey this to the Congress High Command and not to the media, because that will only worsen the image of the Congress, is what senior leaders of the Congress feel. However, this is not the first time. Last week, again, we heard dissenting voices from the Congress as well as far as DMK-Congress alliance is concerned, and this is only going to intensify. However, both the DMK and the Congress sources say that the alliance will continue in 2026 and that whatever opinion comes from certain sections of the Congress, that's their personal opinion and not that of the party's opinion.
Right. Purnima, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. We'll keep an eye out on what exactly transpires in the alliance talks there. Shifting focus now to an incident that's come to the fore from the United States. We're given to understand that a man has been arrested after an incident at the home of US Vice President J.D. Vance. This happened in Ohio, where windows were damaged. There was a scare outside J.D. Vance's home, is what we're learning. No statements so far from the Secret Service, but details are trickling in as far as the safety and security of those inside are concerned. Siddhant, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more details on this. Siddhant, what more can you share with us? What exactly happened?
Well, that's right, Poonam. No other than the Vice President of the United States, J.D. Vance's Cincinnati home was attacked last night with several windows smashed, prompting a response from the Secret Service and Cincinnati police. In fact, Secret Service agents rushed to the East Walnut Hills residence in the early hours of Monday, and a suspect has also been taken in the custody. Though authorities have not confirmed whether charges have been filed, police told the local media houses that the suspect was detained, but provided no further details. The Vance family, an official said, was not at home at that time of the incident, and authorities do not believe the person entered the Vice President's home, according to the preliminary inquiry. Now, according to the local outlet, he was known to have been in Florida last Friday, where he spent the day with President Trump at the President's Golf Club in West Palm Beach. Now, this incident is also taking place at a time, Poonam, when there are massive protests going on in the United States, some in favor of United States for arresting President Maduro, but there are groups, Venezuelan expats living in the United States, which are not happy with the way U.S. Arrested President Maduro, and he has been brought to the United States. Perhaps, as I said, that the identity of the suspect has not been revealed, his affiliation, etc. We don't know anything about that. But since this, the House of Vice President has been attacked, so right now all angles are being probed, both by the Secret Service and by the Cincinnati police. Back to you.
Right. Siddhant, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front.
What will be the basis for what the U.S. government argues in court, at the very least, in this stunning, soon-to-be expected prosecution of a now former Venezuelan leader?
Absolutely. Let's show these live pictures. They're shooting. You can't see them, Omar, because you're standing outside the courthouse where all this is. They're headed, will be at some point headed your way. But we're now tracking something of a little motorcade leaving this detention facility. Obviously, guidance on exactly who is where and what. is coming in and in a developing situation. But we're going to be tracking this because it does look as if they are making their way, leaving that detention facility in Brooklyn and headed right to Omar's location. Omar?
Yeah. And actually, I can actually see a feed of, I believe, the motorcade you're talking about as well. This is actually a similar motorcade to what was used to transfer Maduro when he first arrived to New York City, being transported by helicopter from Fort Stewart north.
Well, that was details there coming in from New York, where the Venezuelan ex-president now, Nicolas Maduro, will be produced in court, where he will be tried after he was captured or abducted, so to say, at gunpoint by the United States. But that incident has now triggered a massive furor here in India. The United Nations Security Council is set to hold an emergency meeting today. They are going to be discussing this U.S. military operation in Venezuela that resulted in the capture of Nicolas Maduro. That incident has now sparked widespread reactions globally. Some countries have condemned it as a violation of sovereignty. Others have called it a move that supports the fight against narco-terrorism. The US, remember, had previously imposed sanctions on Venezuela and offered a 50 million bounty on Maduro's arrest, accusing him of leading a narco-terrorist organization. Maduro's government, however, had denied all of those allegations and had claimed that the US action is an imperialist attack. That UNSC meeting that was requested by Colombia, backed by Russia and China, is likely to take place in a few hours from now. That court appearance of Nicolas Maduro is also expected in just a few minutes from now.
We're still waiting for the judge to provide those details of exactly when. We know that he is expected to appear tomorrow in federal court in downtown Manhattan. That is as much as we know at this hour from the court. We do expect it to happen tomorrow. Obviously, the fact that he is now on U.S. soil, and the general rule is that they have to present him before the federal court to hear the charges that have been filed against him. Those are 4 federal charges, including narco-terrorism and cocaine importation conspiracy. Both him and his wife are now housed here behind me at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, and this is it's a place that has a very notorious reputation. It's not a very nice place. It's a place that the Justice Department's Inspector General has assessed, has problems with, for example, heating. People who've been held there have complained about rat infestation. So it is quite a turn of events for the Maduros to go from what we presume a pretty luxurious circumstance as president and first lady in Venezuela to now being held at this facility here in Brooklyn. There's some pretty noteworthy inmates. Remember that this is a facility that is now really the only facility that the feds use to house inmates because the one across the river in Manhattan was shut down after Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. So some notable people who've been held here include Sean Diddy Combs, El Chapo Guzman, and right now, obviously, Luigi Mangione, who is accused of shooting the United Healthcare CEO. He's also housed here at this facility. And it is, as I mentioned, not a very, it's known to be a very notorious place because it's, a former warehouse here on the the Brooklyn waterfront, and it is pretty much still, that's the way it is set up, is as a warehouse. We know one of the things that they've done is they've set up a secure area for someone like Maduro, someone who requires a lot more security. Obviously, one of the big is to make sure that he is safe, that he is secure. Typically, he'll be held just in isolation by himself, as well as his wife, to make sure that he is safe while he goes through these court proceedings here in New York.
Well, those court proceedings in New York will continue. But like I said, there's a political fight here in India that seems to be ensuing as well. New Delhi had expressed deep concern over the crisis that unfolded in Venezuela after the United States launched that military action on Saturday and captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. India called for a peaceful dialogue but stopped short of directly condemning Washington's actions. And that has now invoked reactions from the opposition here, specifically the Congress and the left parties. New Delhi's statement underlined support for Venezuelan safety while walking a careful diplomatic tightrope among the ongoing relationship that we have with the United States, especially as far as trade and tariffs go, and a broader global picture. But opposition parties like the Congress and the left have slammed the Indian government, accusing the US of violating international law and urging India to take a stronger stance. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has threatened India with higher tariffs. Even as India tries to maintain that diplomatic tightrope, United States and its president is trying to threaten India once again over higher tariffs over its continued imports of Russian oil.
It is a momentous event. You don't see every day a country marching in and capturing the president of a sovereign nation, member state of the United Nations. I think on the actual incident, I would leave it to the government to express their views. But there is no doubt that there is, for some years now, international law and the UN Charter are not being observed in the old ways. And now we are seeing, in many, many ways, a sort of version of might is right prevailing in international affairs, which has very serious implications for all of us. And every country has to adjust its diplomacy accordingly.
The Indian government has always maintained cordial ties with Venezuela in a situation where the US has acted so aggressively. It is our prerogative to take the diplomatic tightrope under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi. We only want peace and quiet all over the world. The Ministry of External Affairs has requested and issued an advisory saying that all non-essential travel to Venezuela should be exercised with extreme caution. But our stand is clear that global peace is paramount, and for those who believe they can bully countries in Latin America and South America, they must understand the international world community is also represented by strong players like India.
This definitely is something which all right-thinking people all across the world need to be concerned about. This is without prejudice to whatever may be or may not be the charges or the alleged charges which have led to this situation manifesting itself. But suffice to say, I would repeat again, that someone in the United States establishment needs to seriously apply themselves to the fact as to whether regime change, and there's a long history of regime change, has worked for the US or has it worked against the interests of the United States?
Well, we'll keep an eye out on what's transpiring there in the United States and the arraignment of Nicolas Maduro that's going to take place in a few hours from now. But for now, it's time for a quick break on this edition of Nation at 5.
In a city that never sleeps, every decision matters. From roads to rains, from safety to services, every rupee counts. One alliance versus fractured opposition. Who will Mumbai choose? Ballot Maximum City. Complete coverage on CNN News 18. This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
The Delhi police has categorically called a regime change operation. A lot of violence broke out, remember, as early as December 2019 in Delhi at various places, and it continued to erupt at many of these protest sites through that period between December, January, and finally when Donald Trump, the American president, was visiting Delhi, full-scale riots broke out as far as this opposition, so-called opposition to CA is concerned. My colleague Anshul Singh is also joining us. Anshul, no relief then for Umar, Khalid and Sharjeel, Imam, and both of their roles have been separated by the Supreme Court when it comes to this case.
Well, definitely that is very, very important and a very pertinent point, because this entire judgment will now set up precedent to many other such such cases, because remember, it is for the first time that in a UAPA case, the Supreme Court has gone ahead and very categorically defined that yes, a bail can be granted in UAPA. But yes, the role of each and every person who is said to be involved, that needs to be looked into. The prima facie evidences that have been put forward, that needs to be examined before granting them bail. Also, in the judgment that has been given out today, the Supreme Court has defined terrorism as well, and in fact added a few lines to that as well. If there is this conspiracy to somewhere or the other disrupt the emergency services, that also falls under terrorism, is what the Supreme Court has said. So this is going to be very, very significant and very, very pivotal in this entire investigation and the entire hearing whenever that starts from the trial court as well. But yes, the manner in which the Supreme Court has dwelled a deep dive into the role of each and every accused, how were they involved, Umar, Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, how they were actually planning to go ahead and disrupt the security of our country. This is something that is very, very significant at this point in time, and definitely a massive thumbs up to the investigation of the Delhi police, which had clearly gone ahead and stated that this was in fact a regime change operation that was being undertaken by Umar, Khalid and Sharjeel Imam. They had planned this entire protest. They had planned the timing of this protest. The first protest that happened in December, that did not bear the fruits that they wanted. And then eventually when Donald Trump came to India, they went ahead and created these artificial, quote-unquote, riots that happened, which were absolutely not, which were actually not natural, is what the Supreme Court is of the opinion. However, the Supreme Court has not gone into the merits of these allegations, but prima facie the Supreme Court is of the opinion that yes, these allegations actually make sure that these accused, Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid, should stay behind the bars.
Right. Anshul, I do appreciate you joining us. Also listening to this conversation that my colleague Ananya Bhatnagar had with ASG SV Raju on the Supreme Court's bail ruling in the Delhi riots case.
My first question to you is, what is the Supreme Court's order? What is the kind of reaction that is there from you, first of all?
Say the reaction is that justice has been done as far as these two persons are concerned, Sharjeel Imam and Umar Khalid. The social media tried to portray their case in a different manner. And without going into the evidence, without going into the material, people made comments, and which was totally unjustifiable. You cannot justify. Some lawmakers from US also said grant them bail. How can US lawmakers say grant them bail? Are they aware of our Indian conditions? Are they aware of the contents of the charge sheet? Merely because they maybe have a different standard in the US. Are they aware of the provisions of law as far as India is concerned? In fact, if anybody would have said this in India, they would have been hauled for contempt. Because you can't tell the court, grant them bail. Somebody will say, don't grant them bail. You can't interfere with the administration of justice. But the court has...
Welcome back to Nation at 5. We have some breaking news that's now coming in. Shashi Tharoor, in an interesting comment, has now come out and said that he has never strayed from the party line. This comes at a time when several comments from the Congress MP in the recent past have been against what the Congress party has said and in line with what the government of the day has said. Amid all of that criticism, especially from party colleagues in Kerala, now Shashi Tharoor has come out and clarified that he has never deviated from the party line. Pallavi, my colleague, now joins us, getting us more perspective on this. Pallavi, it's interesting, this comment from Shashi Tharoor. What gives?
He faced a lot of criticism for his comments, or whether it has been on the Operation Sindhu, or whether it's disagreeing with Rahul Gandhi on the economy collapsing, as Donald Trump had said. But of late, if you notice, inside the parliament, he has taken part in one or two protests. Apart from that, he very much attended the CWC meeting. He has been raising his voice against the G-Ramji bill. And more importantly, Poonam, he's also been allowed to speak as a representative of the Congress party in the Lok Sabha. So this was making many people wonder whether there has been a change of heart. I think Shashi Tharoor is trying to clear the air ahead of the Kerala elections in a couple of months. It is very important that the Congress at least looks like a united house. And maybe this has been prevailed upon him that at least till the Kerala elections are over, we all need to speak in one voice. And that's the clarification he's trying to issue.
Right. Pallavi, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that front. We'll have to see how our reactions trickle in to this particular development. But for now, shifting focus to Punjab, where lawlessness seems to be ruling the roost and the Aam Aadmi Party government there is facing fire. Yesterday, Aam Aadmi Party Sarpanch Jarnail Singh was shot dead during a wedding celebration at a resort in Amritsar in broad daylight as he was surrounded by several people. Two outsiders opened fire, killing him on the spot. The police have now identified the accused, said arrests were to be made soon as well. But the opposition has blamed the law and order situation in Punjab, and because this is not an isolated incident. In fact, this is just a second such killing in 24 hours. There was one such instance that came to the fore just on Saturday. Shiromani Akali Dal has condemned the killing, calling it a deeply alarming trend. The BJP, meanwhile, has said that criminals have become so fearless that they now operate with impunity, openly, in broad daylight, firing at people, turning celebrations into mournings. But the Aam Aadmi Party government is defending itself. The government there describing the incident as tragic, going on to claim that investigation will take its due course and all those behind such crimes will be put behind bars.
पंजाब में कानून व्यवस्था इतनी नीचे गिर चुकी है कि पहले अपराधी मुंह ढक कर आते थे, अब खुले आम आते हैं। भरे हुए मैरिज पैलेस में गोली मारकर दिन दिहाड़े खुशियों के वातावरण में मातम खड़ा करके निकल जाते हैं। ये साबित करता है कि राज्य में अपराधियों को कोई डर नहीं, पूरा डर आम जनता के मन में भय के रूप में खड़ा हुआ। कभी खिलाड़ियों की हत्या हो रही, कभी नेताओं की हत्या हो रही, कभी व्यापारियों की हत्या रही, रंगदारी के फ़ोन आ रहे हैं। डॉक्टर, वकील, उद्योगपति, व्यापारी, किसान सब डर के वातावरण में जी रहे हैं। और आम आदमी की जान आम आदमी पार्टी के राज में सबसे सस्ती हो गई।
बहुत माड़ा होया जी, बहुत मंदभागा है कि एक देवता इंसान जिन्हां ने सारी उम्र कल्ले पिंड दे नहीं पूरे इलाके दे जिहड़ा कोई मदद लई आ गया ਉਹਨੂੰ कदे खाली नहीं मोड़िया हैगा। चाहे किसी गरीब गुरबे दी मदद दा मसला है, चाहे जो मसला उन्होंने को लेके आ गया, और तीजी बारी कोई सरपंच ही नहीं बन जाता हैगा। जे नेक नीति सीगी, चंगे इंसान सी तां ही लोगों ने इन्ना मान बख्शिया। पर मैं एक गल तुहानूं स्पष्ट कर देना चाहना कि ये कारा जिन्हां ने भी अंजाम दिता है, चाहे वो ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਕੱਲ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਵਗੈਰਾ ਦੇਖੀਆਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ, ਤੇ ਚਾहे ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਕੋਈ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹ ਬਖਸ਼ੇ नहीं ਜਾਣਗੇ।
देखिए, पंजाब की जो स्थिति है, आम आदमी पार्टी जिस तरीके से वहाँ पे सरकार चला रही है वो किसी से छुपा नहीं है। सिर्फ बड़े बड़े विज्ञापन देने से सरकार की उपलब्धियाँ नहीं गिनाई जा सकती हैं। इसके पहले भी सिद्धू मूसेवाला की जिस तरीके से हत्या की गई थी, उसके बाद भी सरकार ने कोई सबक नहीं लिया। और जबकि वहाँ तो हम मानते हैं कि 2.5 मुख्यमंत्री हैं, जो मुख्यमंत्री थे वो भी जाकर वहाँ पर सुपर सीएम बने हैं। ऑलरेडी वहाँ पे एक सीएम उन्होंने जो घोषित सीएम था वो भी वहाँ पे, तो 2.5 सीएम होने के बाद भी अगर पंजाब की स्थिति है तो वहाँ की जनता की स्थिति बहुत चिंताजनक है।
मेरा सरपंच साहब के परिवार नाल पूरी हमदर्दी है कि ਜਿਹੜੇ ਦੋਸ਼ੀ ਉਹ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਬਖਸ਼ੇ ਜਾਣਗੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਲਦੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਜਾਮ ਤੇ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਇਆ ਜਾਏ। ਜਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਲਾਅ ਐਂਡ ਆਰਡਰ ਤੇ ਕੰਮ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਸਰਕਾਰ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹ ਇੱਕ ਮਿਸਾਲੀ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ। ਹੁਣ ਤਾਈਂ ਜਿੰਨੇ ਵੀ ਵਾਰਦਾਤਾਂ ਹੋਈਆਂ, ਸਾਰੇ ਦੋਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਫੜਿਆ ਜਾ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈ, ਸਾਰੇ ਦੋਸ਼ੀਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਜਾਮ ਤੱਕ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਇਆ ਜਾ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈ। ਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਤੱਕ ਗੈਂਗਸਟਰ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਛੱਡ ਕੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾਣ ਦੀ ਤਿਆਰੀ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬੀਜੇਪੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਯੂਪੀ ਵੱਲ ਧਿਆਨ ਮਾਰਨ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਐਮਐਲਏ ਨਾਉ ਵਾਲੇ ਕੇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਕੁੜੀ ਨਾਲ ਰੇਪ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਦਾ ਪਿਓ ਵਿਚਾਰਾ ਥਾਣੇ।
ਦੇਖੋ, ਲਾਅ ਐਂਡ ਆਰਡਰ ਨਾਮ ਦੀ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਹੀਂ ਰਹੀ। ਇਹ ਕੋਈ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵਾਰੀ ਇਹ ਹਾਦਸਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਇਆ। ਇਹ ਅੱਜ ਵਿਆਹ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਦੂਜੀ ਘਟਨਾ ਹੈ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੇਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਥੱਲੇ ਲੁਕ ਕੇ ਆਪਦੀ ਜਾਨ ਬਚਾਈ। ਸੋ ਸਰਪੰਚ ਸਾਹਿਬ, ਮੈਂ ਉਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਵੇਖੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਵਿਅਕਤੀ ਬੈਠਾ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਸ਼ਰੇਆਮ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਬਿਨਾਂ ਮੂੰਹ ਟਕੇ ਤੇ ਸਿਰ 'ਚ ਗੋਲੀ ਮਾਰਦੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਮਾਰ ਕੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਸੁੱਟ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ। ਹੁਣ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਦਾ ਕੀ ਕੰਮ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਮੈਂ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਨੇ ਕੀ ਕਰਨਾ। ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੀ ਪੁਲਿਸ ਹੁਣ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਲੱਗੇਗੀ ਕਿ ਪੋਸਟਮਾਰਟਮ ਕਰਾ ਲਓ ਤੇ ਜਲਦੀ ਅੰਤਿਮ ਸੰਸਕਾਰ ਸਰਪੰਚ ਦਾ ਕਰਾ ਲਓ। ਪੁਲਿਸ ਸਾਰੀ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਤੇ ਪੱਬਾਂ ਭਾਰ ਹੋਏਗੀ।
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. In a fresh escalation of diplomatic tensions between India and Bangladesh, cricket, that's long been considered a connection and part of India's soft diplomacy, has now become the latest flashpoint. After BCCI decided to cancel Bangladeshi fast bowler Mustafizur Rahman from the upcoming IPL edition and asked KKR to release him, Dhaka has now banned the broadcast of IPL itself across the country. Now, this sporting rupture is part of a broader freeze in bilateral issues. It's the politics and the recent unrest in Bangladesh affecting the larger cultural landscape in India. There is no denying that alarm in India is at its peak over atrocities in Bangladesh and also an unexplained, unwarranted anti-Indian